Right now, someone dumber than you is winning simply because they took action. And why? Because the world doesn't reward potential, it rewards the bold. That kind of decisiveness isn't just a skill, it's psychological warfare. And someone out there is using it to take what could have been yours. When you hesitate, you become invisible. But the moment you build momentum, everything shifts because momentum makes you magnetic. People don't follow potential, they follow the one who moves first. So if you're stuck, overthinking, hesitating, waiting for the perfect conditions, it's not talent that you lack, it's aggression, urgency. And until that changes, you'll keep watching the less capable pass you by. So let's fix it. You've watched the unqualified, the incompetent, and the idiotic pass you by long enough. In this episode, I'll break down the psychology of decisive action through two controversial but undeniably powerful role models, John D. Rockefeller and Erwin Rommel. Rockefeller, the ruthless businessman, Rommel, the decorated German field commander. I'll use them to illustrate the hidden systems separating high achievers from the herd. This isn't motivational fluff, it's pressure-tested strategy, born in real conflict. No theory, no hype, just what works when everything's on the line, which it is, because this is your life that we're talking about. So this is for the part of you that's done watching, done waiting, and ready to not just survive, but to dominate. First up, diligence produces nobility. Most people in business aren't that smart. They just have a bias for action. Mistakes made them smart. Experiences made them sharp. It's not about raw intelligence, it's about having seen things before and knowing what they're up against. You can be intelligent, but not smart, clever, or wise. That comes from pain, from opponents who force you to level up. I was clueless when I started dating, but after enough failure, I learned to spot patterns and protect myself. Business was no different. I made costly mistakes, got taken advantage of, and bled time, money, and energy. But that pain taught me to solve problems quickly and avoid potential traps. That's not brilliance, it's exposure. What matters isn't being born gifted, but being interested enough to stay in the fight. The only way to gain that kind of instinct is through action. When a rival businessman known as Mr. Benson began drilling aggressively near his territory, Rockefeller didn't wait to see how it would play out. He struck immediately. He mobilized allies to cut Benson off from critical partnerships. He placed a massive order for barrels near Benson's fields, deliberately limiting his ability to ship oil. He brokered fresh deals and applied pressure from multiple angles, choking off the threat before it could escalate. Benson wasn't weak, and Rockefeller respected him as an opponent. He was bold, capable, and determined. Rockefeller understood that in business, hesitation is permission. Problems don't shrink with time, they expand. Initiative allowed him to frame the conflict on his terms and dominate the narrative. It wasn't just intelligence that gave him the edge. It was speed, precision, and the refusal to be passive. Read Erwin Rommel's field journal, Attacks, and you'll find a relentless sequence of impossible scenarios, some of the most intense fighting in recent history. Day after day, he's pinned down by machine gun fire from fortified uphill positions, outnumbered, surrounded, and cut off from support. Yet, he advances, not through blind aggression, but calculated momentum. Rommel led from the front because he knew clarity comes from proximity. His leadership wasn't theoretical, it was tangible, visible, and immediate. Under fire, he didn't deliberate, he decided. And that's what made him dangerous. Not just his tactics, but his presence. Despite being on the wrong side of history, Rommel is still revered today even by our military for his tactical genius. And if you're not a military person, you've probably still heard the term blitz. It comes from the German word blitzkrieg, meaning lightning war, which is a tactic Rommel perfected. But his brilliance wasn't like that of Sun Tzu or Napoleon. They commanded vast armies with political power behind them. Rommel had neither. He was on the front lines, outgunned, outnumbered, and under constant fire. His strategy was brutally simple: attack. He didn't wait for the tide to turn, he created it. His fallback plan was always the same: advance. Not recklessly, but tactically. Always seeking the next move forward, no matter how small. That's not theory, that's leadership in the fire. There's a machine gun bunker on top of the hill. Do I wait for someone to save me or hope that they run out of ammo? No, figure out where their fire is weakest and charge that avenue with everything you've got. I'm surrounded and taking fire from the trenches in front of me. Okay, but if I can run fast enough, I can get into the trench from the side, work my way through it, and use the fortified position to turn around and fend off the rest of the force. No one's close enough. Fine, I'll do it myself. He was a military genius with a very simple strategy. It's just that that strategy was the most effective one. You study successful people and consume their stories, but if you don't implement what you learn, you might as well be watching a soap opera. History should be studied to avoid repeating the mistakes of others, but without action, it's just trivia. Knowledge without application is a candle without a wick. No fire, no heat. You don't build a legacy by collecting insights. You build it by executing on them. And that's the trap of the self-help culture. Endless learning, zero movement. You must constantly ask yourself, am I applying this or just admiring it? And a quote from Rockefeller, am I using my mind to create history or merely recording the history of others? Next up, intelligent action versus mindless activity. Distinguish between actions that yield results from mere busyness. But what about the people who work hard and are still broke? What about the times when it's best to just sit back and wait? What if I overextend myself and get into trouble? Well, how do you know you're working at the wrong thing unless you work hard enough to be sure that your effort isn't the problem? How do you know it's time to be patient when you use caution as an excuse for fear and laziness? How will you learn your limits if your default state is apathy? Rockefeller understood a crucial truth. Not all action is created equal. That's where you have to get smart. For the passive, the first rule is simple. A bad plan is better than no plan. Movement beats paralysis. But as you make mistakes and gain ground, you need to evolve. Discern which moves generate real returns. If you keep charging forward without refining your systems, you'll burn energy and leave potential on the table. A dumb person who takes consistent action will outperform a genius who never moves. Just look around. Plenty of idiots run empires, while prodigies rot in obscurity. The key difference? Action. And once you've acted, you gain something priceless. Feedback. That's where the real wealth is. Inside the consequences. But you can't access that insight from the stands. You only earn it in the arena. Trial and error isn't optional. It's the cost of clarity. So ignore the spectators who find flaws in every approach but never take risks. Their opinions don't count because they're not in the fight. Rommel's strategies weren't complex, but they were never careless. He understood the value of positioning, especially because he often started from a disadvantage. His attacks were precise, calculated, and ruthlessly effective. He mastered the art of using limited resources to dismantle fortified enemies. There's a lesson in that. Rommel didn't charge in like an action star. He squeezed every ounce of value from the basic tactics available. He used angles to reduce incoming fire, he split forces to create confusion, and almost always led from the front, earning the respect of his men not through orders, but through presence. Simplicity applied with intent beats complexity every time. And there's a vital concept in here that'll be in the practical steps section. He was what the Marine Corps calls brilliant in the basics. He didn't need a fancy war plan to decide to take ground. He didn't complain about his lack of resources. Instead, he pushed his resourcefulness to the absolute limit. Proper decisive leveraging of the basic tools and tactics available was all he needed. The lesson here is to stop thinking that you don't know enough, don't have enough, or aren't good enough. You already have what you need to start. And besides, the better you get at anything, the more you realize that all you really need are the fundamentals. When I was training for my Taekwondo black belt, I had to learn all kinds of flashy spinning kicks. Guess how many of those I have actually used in a real fight? Zero, not one. But the value they offered was in forcing me to master the basics on a higher level. You don't need to jump over a car and kick someone in the head to win a fight. But if you can probably do a basic kick pretty well. And you don't need a complicated strategy to start after your goals either. Complexity will build organically as you take on more and more challenge, but it breaks down fast if your understanding of the basics is shallow. Most of what you need are the raw, entry-level skills executed with precision and mastery. Yes, you'll pick up new tools over time, but they're all variations of the same principles. As the legendary swordsman and strategist Miyamoto Musashi said, once you've mastered one thing deeply, you begin to understand all things. For example, someone might say, I want to start $1 million business, but I can't get the loans. Okay, well, start a small business that you can afford, make money, and leverage it for bigger and bigger loans. Besides, it's running those smaller businesses that'll teach you to run the big ones anyway. Rommel succeeded because he mastered the basics and organized them around one dominant principle: decisive action. He didn't rely on elaborate plans or cutting-edge technology. He used the tools he had and moved fast. His action wasn't reckless, but sharply focused. When a tactic failed, he adapted. But he never stalled. That relentless commitment to forward motion, grounded in the fundamentals, is what turned him into a legend. He didn't chase brilliance, he executed the obvious better than anyone else, which took boldness, courage, and determination. Point number 3, using failure as fuel. Rockefeller once said, failure is like a glass of spirits, bitter at first, but afterward, full of vitality. He didn't just endure failure, he extracted power from it. Every failed venture, every setback became a strategic asset. He treated losses as data, dissecting what went wrong and integrating the insight into his next move. Where others failed, he grew sharper. Failure clarified his thinking. It exposed weak assumptions, revealed false partners, and strengthened his judgment. To Rockefeller, failure wasn't personal, but the price of progress. He didn't fear it, he used it. Likewise, Rommel treated every setback as a live action lesson. Whenever a maneuver failed, he didn't retreat into self-pity. He studied the terrain, the timing, and the enemy's response. Losses were not a sign of incompetence, they were intelligence briefings. He used them to refine angles of attack, reposition forces, and recalibrate his timing. The next strike was always sharper because the last one taught him something. Rommel's genius wasn't in avoiding failure, but in converting it into fuel. Tactical losses gave shape to future victories, every mistake narrowing the margin of error and increasing the efficiency of his aggression. Number 4. Active faith moves mountains. And this is the one that I'm most excited about just because it was an extremely difficult lesson for me to learn. Rockefeller often said that to succeed, you have to first believe that success is possible. You won't push past your limits chasing something you secretly think is pointless. There has to be faith that it can be done. But here's where people get confused. They confuse faith with hope. Faith acts, hope waits. Faith builds a system and takes responsibility for the outcome. Hope fantasizes and avoids accountability. One moves, the other dreams. One's active, one's passive. Guess which one is favored by fortune? You can sit around and hope that things get better all day, but faith implies action. I can hope that I'll find love, but if I don't have faith it'll happen, I'm not going to bother talking to anyone. And to be honest, that's pretty much where I'm at on the dating front, but we don't need to talk about that. I can hope I'll succeed in business, but without faith, I won't sacrifice my 20s and potentially my 30s to make it happen. In a letter to his son, Rockefeller reflected on the verse where Christ tells his disciples that faith can move mountains. You've probably heard this, but he clarified what most miss. It's not about believing and just waiting around for a miracle. Oh, God will fix it. God will move the mountain for me. It's about believing enough that the mountain can move so that you can go out there and start moving the stones yourself. The one who truly has faith that the mountain can move will be the one that picks up the shovel. And I once heard that the Romans later on, in order to build a road, may have actually leveled that mountain that he was referring to. I haven't verified that. Honestly, I didn't try very hard, but the point stands. In the Greek, the word for faith implies trust that's strong enough to act, like stepping onto a bridge. Not because you hope it'll hold, but because you trust it enough to put your weight on it. Number 5. True faith acts, not waits. True faith isn't passive. It doesn't sit back and hope. It moves. It's active conviction, not wishful thinking. Faith says, I have decided, not I'm waiting to see. Rommel embodied this. As the war dragged on, his maneuvers grew bolder and bolder, often executed under extreme pressure with minimal resources and against overwhelming odds. But he moved with such clarity and force that it inspired confidence in everyone around him. His troops didn't follow because the odds were good. They followed because he believed that the move would work and was willing to risk his life in order to move those mountains. That kind of conviction is contagious. It sharpens morale and overrides fear. In war and in life, people don't follow the smartest voice, and I'm sure you know this by now. They follow the surest voice. Conmen, cult leaders, and charlatans know this very well. It's up to you to use this knowledge for good. But in other words, the battle starts in your mind and your heart. You have to believe you have the potential to become successful. Rockefeller writes that how you see yourself is how others will see you, but with one crucial caveat. Number 6. Avoiding the narcissism trap. Self-belief must manifest in external action. Affirmations alone are the opium of the weak-minded, momentary highs that pacify without producing. The world does not respond to your potential, only to your proof. Confidence without conquest is indistinguishable from delusion. The modern obsession with mindset has become a spiritualized form of procrastination. People obsess over inner alignment while their enemies take ground. But in reality, you don't think your way into power. You act your way into certainty. Every step forward in defiance of fear rewires your negative self-image far more efficiently than hours of journaling, mantras, and the deep inner work that people think is going to fix their life. A lot of people are obsessed with self-love, convinced they're God's gift to humanity, the alpha, the queen, the main character, but their confidence floats on nothing. No victories, no discipline, no edge. Just a curated identity propped up by buzzwords and vibes. It's performance without substance. Manifestation, quote unquote, without action is just narcissism repackaged for white women. An excuse to feel powerful without paying the price. Real self-belief is earned in private through repetition, risks, and results. Anything else is a costume. Rockefeller never broadcasted greatness. He became it. He understood that identity isn't declared, it's validated through consistent, purposeful action. While others flaunted ambition, he built silently, brick by brick, letting his results accumulate like compound interest. He didn't need to convince himself he was destined for success. He proved it daily by aligning every move with that outcome. In his world, character wasn't an aesthetic. It was a record of decisions, habits, and discipline. Success to him wasn't a vision board or a speech. It was quiet momentum bled for in obscurity. His identity as a titan was not a belief, but an archive. Rommel didn't command through titles. He led with movement. Leadership to him wasn't posture or rhetoric. It was defined by tangible actions and visible results. He was the first to advance, last to retreat, and always within reach of the front. His authority didn't stem from hierarchy, but from admiration and trust, earned daily through risk, adaptation, and initiative. While others waited for the perfect plan, Rommel acted decisively, knowing momentum itself was a weapon. His troops followed not out of obligation, but because he took initiative to make bold decisions and had the tenacity to follow through with them even when problems arose. In his world, leadership wasn't abstract. It was measured in ground taken and lives saved. And lives taken. So let's break down the strategic psychological insights demonstrated by these individuals. First up, the momentum principle. Decisive action generates momentum, and momentum creates the illusion of inevitability. Once a move is made with clarity and force, it begins to pull in resources, allies, and unexpected advantages, like gravity forming a planet from scattered debris. People want to attach themselves to direction, not indecision. Momentum signals competence, confidence, and vision, traits we all subconsciously look to follow or support. Even imperfect action, if executed with speed and conviction, reshapes perception and tilts the environment in your favor. The hesitant wait for clarity. The strategic use action to create it. Next is rapid iteration. Mastery is not built through perfect planning. It's forged in fast cycles of execution and adaptation. The strategist moves quickly but not recklessly, knowing that clarity comes from contact, not contemplation. Each action is a probe. Act, observe, adjust, repeat. This loop shortens the feedback cycle and compounds learning. Most people hesitate, obsessing over getting it right the first time. But the elite don't seek perfection, they seek data. Rapid iteration lets you outpace competitors simply by evolving faster. In a world paralyzed by overthinking, speed becomes a weapon. Psychological dominance. Decisiveness is not just a tactical advantage, it's a psychological weapon. When you act with speed and clarity, you project certainty, and certainty unsettles the unsure. Hesitant opponents begin to question their own judgment, recalibrate their plans, and react to you rather than execute on their own. This shift creates a mental high ground, where your momentum sets the pace, and their fear of making the wrong move causes paralysis. True dominance is never just physical, because battles are won in the mind. The one who moves first, the hardest, and with the most conviction, forces others into a defensive posture they rarely recover from. So let's talk about the practical application side of this. First, develop a plan. If you fail to plan, you've already chosen drift over direction. The plan is not meant to be sacred, it's just a starting point. It will evolve, break, and force you to adapt. But without one, there's nothing to refine and nothing to test against reality. Movement without a plan is just motion. It burns energy but builds nothing. A tangible direction, even if imperfect, gives your actions structure and your mind clarity. It separates the strategic from the reactive. The plan isn't about control, it's about momentum with intent. You can't steer what isn't moving. Doing this allows you to figure out what works. And once you know what works, you can figure out how to make your process for doing those things more efficient. That leads to developing systems. Willpower fades, emotion fluctuates, systems endure. A system is a repeatable process that turns discipline into default. The most effective operators don't rely on motivation. They build environments and routines that make success inevitable. Systems reduce decision fatigue, eliminate wasted effort, and allow you to scale actions without burning out. They also transform chaos into rhythm. Every elite performer, from generals to CEOs, operate on systems because they know raw effort alone is not sustainable. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the strength of your systems. Default to action. Indecision kills momentum. In high pressure moments, you don't rise to the complexity of the situation, you fall to the simplicity of your defaults. Rommel's genius wasn't just tactical, it was psychological. He created a bias for forward movement, so in uncertainty, the only question was how to advance, not whether he should. To emulate this, build default strategies and heuristics ahead of time. Know your available resources, your thresholds for risk, your rules of thumb, and this will reduce the cognitive load and emotional entanglement, enabling rapid decisions while others freeze. The longer you hesitate, the more resistance builds. Patience is only strategic when it comes from restraint, not passivity. Deliberate delay is a weapon. Chronic hesitation is a weakness. Take your time with critical decisions, gather intel, weigh risks, test assumptions. But once the choice is made, lock in. The moment you commit, the environment will test you. Doubt, fear, fatigue, they all come disguised as logic. but reevaluating under pressure leads to self sabotage, not insight. A decent plan followed with resolve will outperform a perfect one abandoned mid course. Emotion clouds judgment, so commit while your mind is clear and let action carry you through the storm. And to truly make this a part of you, train decisiveness daily. Strategic decisiveness isn't built in crisis, it's forged in the mundane. Start small and learn to make quick decisions daily. What to say, what to cut, where to move. Each choice strengthens your ability to act under pressure. Then reflect, not with regret, but with precision and intention. Extract the lesson while the outcome is still fresh and then move forward. This loop of act, assess, and adjust builds speed and accuracy. Over time, your confidence won't just be theoretical, but will be earned through visible results. Self belief only becomes unshakable when it's tied to proof. Decisive action is a habit, not a personality trait. So build it like a muscle, daily, deliberately, and without excuse. If you made it this far, consider subscribing, giving me a like. If you're listening on Spotify, it would also help me out tremendously if you would also follow me on YouTube just to get some momentum to get the algorithm going so that I can pick up some pace there. But either way, I sincerely appreciate you guys. I love you. You're the reason I do this. Feel free to reach out with any questions that you might have. Leave some comments down below. I'll see you soon. God bless.